Boys and girls and Cougar parents, today we are going to work on our study guide. Tomorrow you have the test for Unit 10 on slope. Let's take a look at a couple problems, and please don't be afraid to go back to some of the other videos that I had earlier this week and last week as well. Okay, boys and girls, let's take a look at number 8. The instructions say use the two-point slope formula to find the slope of the line through each pair of points. So our two-point slope formula would be y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1 is equal to our rise over run, which is our slope. Okay, and where do we get these values from? Well, this would be our first x value, this would be our first y value, this would be our second x value, and this would be our second y value. Why is that? Because this is point 1 and this is point 2. Okay, so we substitute our values into this formula, and y2 is negative 11, and then I would subtract y1, which is 16. Then I would take x2, which is negative 12, and I would subtract my first x value, which is 1. Okay, and negative 11 minus 16 is like spending $11 then spending $16 altogether. You would have spent $27. And then 12 minus 1 is just like digging a 12-foot hole and then digging it a foot deeper, which would be a 13-foot hole in the ground. Now a negative divided by a negative is a positive, so we could say that this is also equal to 27 over 13. What does that mean? 27 up and then 13 to the right. That's where you're going to find every point. See, your slope is just directions along your graph. You find a point on the line, and then the slope says, okay, go so many blocks up and then so many to the right, or it might say down if it's negative and left if it's negative as well. Let's take a look at number 18. Number 18 asks us to write an equation of each line in slope-intercept form. Whoa, what happened? Okay, so slope-intercept form would look like this. Y is equal to mx plus b. Now, this right here, this m represents our slope. X and y are just our x and y coordinates, and then b would be our y-intercept. Now, what's a y-intercept? Y-intercept is where your line crosses over the y-axis. Okay, so we have y-axis, which would be this point right here. So b is equal to, let's see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 down, which is negative 4. So my b, or y-intercept, is negative 4. Now the m is the slope. How do you find slope? Slope is rise over run. So I'd say from this point to this point, going right to left, I'd go up all the way to here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my rise is 7, and then my run would be 3. So my slope is 7 over 3. Now I just plug this data into my formula. Y is equal to m, which is 7/3 x, plus b, which is a negative 4. And I can clean this up a little bit, which would be the same thing as y is equal to 7/3, that's my slope, times my x coordinate minus 4. Either one of these equations is acceptable. They're both the same thing. Adding a negative is the same thing as just subtracting. Let's take a look at our next 3 problems. Number 24 is a challenge problem. It says find the value of x or y so that the line through the points has the given slope. So here they give us, we're missing this x value here. We want to use our two-point slope formula, which would be y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1 is going to be equal to the rise over run. My rise is negative 2, and that would make my run 1. Okay, so let's plug in or substitute our values. Y2 is 4 minus y1, which is 6. And then x2 is 6 minus whatever x is, which is, I'm going to figure that out in a moment. Okay, so then we bring down this as well. So I got negative, they already give us the slope, which is 2 down and 1 to the right. Well, I can see that 4 minus 6 is negative 2. The question is 6 minus what would give me 1? And that, of course, is 5. So all we have to do is plug in a value for this missing variable, which happens to be x1, and to make our slope be true, because this slope should be equal to this. Number 28, okay, it says circle the slope m and draw a box around the y-intercept, which we refer to as b, of each line. Okay, well, that's easy enough. Okay, our slope is right there because we know that y is equal to mx plus b. So right there's our slope. Okay, and then in the b spot, or y-intercept, is negative 3. We can even just go like that. Number 32, we are supposed to do the same thing, but they weren't as kind to leave this in order, so we're going to have to do some rearranging here. We have to get this in y-intercept form, because if you just circle negative 15, that is not the slope, and just assume that negative 3 is going to be your y-intercept. And let's see why, because we need to solve for y. That's how we need to get it in y is equal to mx plus b. Right now I got a negative 3 and some extra junk I need to get rid of. So the first thing is we want to solve for terms of y, or isolate y, get y all by itself. I want to get rid of negative 3. I have to add 3. And what I do to one side, I do to the other. Okay, that cancels that out. I bring down my negative 3y is equal to a negative 15x plus 3. Okay, now I didn't solve for y, I solved for negative 3y. So there's one more step. I have to do the inverse operation. What's happening to y? I'm multiplying it by negative 3. What's the inverse of that? I have to divide by negative 3. And what I do to one side of the equation, I must do to the other. That cancels out our negative 3, so I finally have y isolated all by itself, but I still need to divide through on the other side of the equation. And I have to do this distributively. I need to divide both terms by a negative 3. A negative 15 divided by a negative 3 is going to be a positive 5x. And then a positive 3 divided by a negative 3 is going to be a negative 1. And let's just do one last step. So we could say y is equal to mx plus b. Whoops. Okay, see what I'm doing here? I'm just putting it in order. I'm just flip-flopping it around. So my slope would be 5, and my y-intercept, or b, would be negative 1. I hope that was helpful. I did a couple problems for you to get you started. Look at some of the videos that are on my website for some of the other concepts and terms. And remember, when you look at this assignment online, there's an answer key to check your work, not to cheat. Okay. You have a good day. I'll see you tomorrow. Hope you do well on the test.